The cleaner's son answered a call from Germany. He was only 12 years old. He shouldn't have been there. He was just waiting for his mum to finish her shift. Minutes later, the wealthy tech mogul's biggest contract was safe, and that changed everything. Claire adjusted her gloves for the third time before leaving the house. It wasn't nervousness without reason. The extra day shift always felt wrong. At night, she moved almost invisibly. By day, everything was more exposed. The glances, the demands, the risk. Finn watched his mum in silence, sitting at the small kitchen table with his backpack resting between his feet. 12 years old, too much stillness for his age. He held a worn-out, plain-covered notebook, one of those that didn't draw attention, and he didn't want it to. "It's just for today," Claire said, without looking at her son. The usual cleaner was absent, and they asked for a fill-in. "Is there an important meeting over there?" Finn nodded. He didn't ask anything. He had already learned that questions didn't pay the overdue bills. The company's building loomed imposingly from a distance, somewhere in the Sydney CBD. Tall glass windows, a mirrored facade. People hurried in, as if time there was more valuable than anywhere else in the city. Claire took a deep breath before crossing the revolving door. In reception, the air conditioning was too cold. The security guard asked for her pass, verified the name, and only then noticed Finn. "He'll stay with me," Claire said quickly before he could speak. The man frowned. "He can't wander. He must stay in a corner and not touch anything." Claire thanked him more than necessary. Finn didn't say a word. The lift ascended silently to the services level. When the doors opened, the atmosphere was different. People walking fast, tense voices, coffee cups piled up on makeshift tables. It wasn't a normal day. "Stay there," Claire pointed to a chair against the hallway wall. "Don't get up. Don't talk to anyone." Finn sat obediently, rested his backpack on his lap, and opened his notebook more out of habit than desire. The pages were filled with simple notes, scattered words, a few short phrases that no one there would recognize. They were in German, the language Oma Ingrid had taught him since he was small. Claire pushed the cleaning trolley carefully, trying not to make noise. Even so, a woman in high heels rushed past and shot her a hard look. "This isn't cleaning time," she complained without stopping. "Sorry," Claire replied, lowering her head. Across the hallway, a large glass room drew attention. Inside, well-dressed men and women spoke softly, but with urgency. One of them paced back and forth, mobile phone in hand, expression grim. Marcus Thorne didn't shout. He didn't need to. His presence did the work for him. "This cannot go wrong today," he said curtly. "If this contract falls through, the consequences will be severe." No one answered. They just nodded. Claire was mopping the floor near the closed door when she heard scattered words escaping the room. Germany. Confirmation. Deadline. She didn't understand the context, but she felt the weight. The kind of weight that makes the air feel dense. Finn also listened. Not everything, just enough to perceive that something serious was at stake. He lowered his eyes to the notebook again, running his fingers over a word written in pencil, almost erased, something his grandmother used to repeat at home, with a heavy accent and a sad smile. Finn slowly closed the notebook. The cleaning trolley made a louder noise as it passed over a floor joint. "Can you be more careful?" someone complained from down the hall. "Yes, sir," Claire replied, flustered. She felt her body tense. Any mistake here seemed bigger than it actually was. Any misstep could cost the shift or the job. A staffer rushed out of the meeting room talking on his phone, face flushed, and almost collided with Finn. He stopped when he saw him sitting there. "Is this a childcare center now?" he commented loudly, provoking uncomfortable titters from those passing by. Claire heard it, pretending not to. Finn felt his face burn, but he didn't react. He just lowered his head. Inside the room, tension mounted. Papers scattered, people talking at the same time, someone saying time was running out. Marcus thumped the table once. If no one solves this, no amount of spin will help. The silence that followed was heavy. Claire then received a quick order. "I need you to clean that support area now. There's going to be movement there." She nodded and pushed the trolley toward the indicated space, near the more important rooms. Finn got up from the chair and followed a few steps behind, as his mum had taught him early on, without drawing attention, without taking up space. The corridor seemed smaller there, narrower, more watched. The air carried a strange sensation, as if something were about to happen. Finn leaned against the wall, observing. Claire cleaned quickly, her heart racing. Neither of them knew exactly what, but they both felt it. On that floor, something important was hanging by a thread, and they were right in the middle of it, even without being seen. The executive floor seemed to breathe poorly that morning. The air conditioning was working, but no one seemed comfortable. Coffee cups accumulated untouched on tables. Lit screens displayed graphs and numbers that no one had time to calmly analyze. The clock on the wall advanced cruelly. Marcus Thorne entered the meeting room without greeting anyone, took off his suit jacket, left it on the chair, and placed his hands on the glass table. "Let's go again," he said directly. "I want this presentation perfect before the call." No one answered. They simply started moving. An analyst opened the slides, another staffer reorganized printed documents. A third adjusted the projector as if that would solve anything. The problem wasn't the material, it was the time. "The German company has already postponed twice," Marcus continued. "Today is the final confirmation. Either we close, or they will look for another partner." "Has the interpreter confirmed?" someone asked cautiously. Marcus gave him a hard look. "He said he would be available," said. It wasn't the same as is. Everyone there knew it, but no one dared to say it aloud. Outside the room, Claire was mopping the floor with quick movements. The trolley squeaked softly, but it seemed too loud in that tense environment. She passed the cloth and pretended not to listen, but voices cut through the glass. "Is the margin correct? If they question the clause, we are exposed. Legal has already reviewed this." Claire didn't understand the terms, but she recognized the tone. It was the same tone as when money was tight, as when the wrong choice cost dearly. Finn watched from afar. Leaning against the wall, he felt this wasn't an ordinary day. The people there didn't speak loudly, but they spoke with urgency, as if any delay could bring down something too big to be rebuilt. A staffer hurried out of the room with his mobile phone to his ear. "I don't need him now," he said, trying to control his voice. "It's today, it can't be later." He hung up frustrated and went back inside. "The interpreter isn't answering," he reported in a low, but audible enough, voice. Marcus closed his eyes for a second. Just one. When he opened them, his expression was even harsher. "I don't care why," he said. "Find someone. We can try the outsourced service," suggested a woman sitting at the back. "I already tried," replied another. "The call center is out of action." An awkward silence settled. "Then improvise," Marcus said. "You knew last week this call was coming." "We know English," someone attempted. Marcus tilted his head impatiently. "They don't want English. They want clarity, and they want it in German." From the hallway, Claire moved slightly away from the door. She didn't want to seem curious. She didn't want to seem present. She just needed to finish the job. "You're making too much noise," a man complained, passing by her and pointing at the trolley. "Sorry," Claire said once more. Finn clenched his fists inside his backpack. He said nothing. In the room, tension increased as time passed. Someone opened a recent email and read it aloud, translating roughly. "They say they need to confirm today, or they'll close the process." Marcus leaned on the table again. "Listen carefully," he said firmly. "If this contract falls through, it won't just be a number on the report. There will be cutbacks. There will be consequences. No one moved. I won't repeat myself," he finished. Outside, Claire felt her stomach clench. That sentence wasn't directed at her, but it hit all the same. Cutbacks, consequences, words she knew too well. A staffer ran down the hall, almost colliding with Finn. He didn't even apologize. Finn shrank slightly more against the wall. "Mum," he called softly. "Not now," Claire replied without looking. Finn slowly opened his notebook, not to study, just to calm himself. He ran his eyes over some handwritten words. Memories of afternoons spent at Oma's house. Familiar sounds, inflections that didn't match this building but insisted on existing. In the room, someone tested the phone's speaker. The sound echoed through the hallway for a few seconds before being turned off. "When they call, someone is going to have to answer," Marcus said. "And fast." "But who?" asked the analyst tensely. Marcus took a deep breath. "I don't know," he replied, "but someone will have to solve it." Outside, Claire continued pushing the trolley. Finn got up and followed her in silence. The hallway seemed even narrower there, quieter, as if the entire building was waiting for something to happen. Finn stopped near the wall, hugging his backpack. His heart beat fast, without him knowing exactly why. Inside the room, Marcus looked at the clock. "They'll call any minute now," he said. No one replied. The problem was set, and no one there seemed ready to solve it. The sound of the phone cut through the room's air like an alarm. It wasn't loud, but it was insistent. A dry, repetitive sound that no one seemed to want to hear. Everyone looked at each other at the same time. Marcus Thorne was the first to react. "Answer it," he said, without raising his voice. No one moved. The phone rang again. An analyst hesitantly reached out, as if the device might bite. She brought it to her ear, listened for 2 seconds, and paled. "It's German," she said, covering the microphone. "They're already talking." Marcus closed his eyes for an instant. When he opened them, he was visibly more tense. "Pass it to someone," he ordered. The analyst turned to her colleagues, almost pleading. "Does anyone here understand?" Silence. "I recognize a few words," a man ventured, "but I can't respond." The phone was still open. On the other end, the voice spoke quickly, without patience. "Hang up," someone suggested in a panic. Marcus slammed his hand on the table. "No," he said. "If we hang up, it's over." In the hallway, Claire pushed the cleaning trolley toward the support area indicated minutes before. She tried to move quickly, but nervousness hampered her. Every step seemed out of rhythm with that place. Finn walked a few steps behind. As always, he observed more than he walked. The sound of the voice cut through the room's glass and reached the hallway muffled. It wasn't possible to understand everything, but the tone was clear, irritated, tired, definitive. Finn slowed his pace. The staffer spoke again, now in English, with the phone still to her ear. "They're asking something I can't quite understand clearly," she said, almost whispering. "Ask, what exactly is missing for the contract?" Marcus said curtly. She tried. "Excuse me," she began in English. The answer came immediately, harsher. She pulled the phone away from her ear. "He said something about not wanting English," she explained. Marcus ran his hand over his face and asked about the interpreter, though he already knew the answer. Still not answering, someone replied. The staffer tried to keep the call alive, repeating vague phrases, asking for a moment. As the seconds ticked by from the hallway, Finn stopped completely. The sound of the voice on the other end now came through the improvised speaker, accidentally activated when the staffer tried to change a setting. Finn understood a complete sentence, then another. His heart raced. "Mum," he called softly. Claire turned immediately, startled. "Not now, Finn," but the boy wasn't looking at his mother. He was looking toward the meeting room. "He's saying he's going to hang up," he murmured, not realizing he was speaking louder than intended. Claire felt the floor disappear. "Finn, be quiet," she whispered, almost in a panic. But someone in the room heard. "What?" asked one of the executives, opening the glass door. "Who said that?" Finn swallowed, feeling all eyes fall on him at once. "Was it him?" another asked, frowning. "The cleaner's son." Claire dropped the cloth into the trolley. "Sorry," she said quickly. "He doesn't know what he's saying." "Yes, I do," Finn replied in a thread of a voice. He said, "Hang up." The silence that formed was different from all the others that day. It wasn't tension, it was strangeness. Marcus approached the door, observing the boy as if he hadn't been there before. "You understand German?" he asked directly. Finn hesitated, looking at his mum. Claire was pale. "A bit," he replied. "I learned it from my Oma." "This isn't a game," an executive said. "We're talking about a multi-million-dollar contract." "I know," Finn replied, lowering his eyes. "That's why I spoke." The phone was still open. The voice on the other side repeated something with growing impatience. The staffer held the device with both hands, unsure what to do. "Answer that," Marcus said suddenly. It wasn't a gentle request, it was a tired order. The staffer extended the phone toward him, but Marcus didn't take it. He looked at Finn. "You said you understand. Speak. What is he saying now?" Finn took a deep breath. "He's asking if there's anyone there who speaks German," he replied. "And if not, he's going to hang up." One of the executives let out a nervous laugh. "This is ridiculous." Marcus didn't laugh. The phone made a small click on the other end. The call threatened to drop. Finn took a step forward without realizing it. "Can I answer?" he said. "No," someone replied immediately. "This is adult business." "He's a child," said another. "This is madness." Claire felt her legs tremble. "Finn, come here," she pleaded, almost crying, but the phone chirped again. A brief warning. "Last chance," said the voice on the other end, now audible even to those who didn't understand German. Finn recognized the words, the tone, the decision. He looked at Marcus. "He's going to hang up," he said now. Marcus looked at the boy for 2 long seconds. Then he looked around. He saw a room full of prepared, well-paid adults, incapable of answering. "Let him talk," Marcus said at last. But someone began. "If it goes wrong, the responsibility is mine," he cut in. "But if we hang up now, it's over anyway." The staffer brought the phone closer to Finn, her hands trembling. The hallway seemed too small for that decision. Finn closed his eyes for a second. He remembered his Oma. the way she patiently corrected his pronunciation. He opened his eyes. "Guten Tag," he said in German, almost perfect, with a voice too firm for a 12-year-old. Everyone froze, and the silence that followed was no longer of fear. It was of shock. Finn's first response didn't come quickly. It came carefully. "Guten Tag," he repeated, slightly firmer now. "Ein Moment, bitte." The voice on the other end of the line stopped. Inside the room, no one moved. There was no audible celebration or astonishment, just that uncomfortable silence that arises when something unexpected happens and no one knows how to react. Marcus watched the boy attentively. There was no emotion on his face. There was calculation, evaluation. He knew this was the kind of moment that could solve everything or make it definitively worse. "Ask what they need now," he said softly, almost as if he didn't want to be heard. Finn nodded slightly. He didn't look back. He didn't look for his mother. The phone trembled a little in his hand, but he kept his voice steady. "What else is needed for the confirmation?" he asked in German. The answer came back too long. Finn frowned for an instant, not because he didn't understand, but because he needed to mentally organize what he was hearing. The terms were more technical than he was used to. He took a deep breath. "He's saying he needs to confirm 2 points, he translated. "A deadline and a clause about liability." A murmur ran through the room. "What clause?" an executive asked, already opening a document. Finn returned to the phone and asked carefully. The man replied faster now, less aggressive, still impatient, but attentive. Finn listened until the end. "It's about delay in delivery," he explained. "They want a formal written guarantee, still today." Marcus made a quick gesture with his hand. "Tell him the legal department is already adjusting that, and that we will send the email in minutes." Finn nodded, but he hesitated before repeating. Something in the sentence needed to be adjusted. He knew it. "Wait," he said softly. "If I say it like that, it sounds like a vague promise." Marcus stared at him. "Then, how would you say it?" Finn thought for 2 seconds. "I would say that the document is already in final review and that the dispatch is scheduled," he replied. "Not that we're going to try." Marcus nodded slowly. "That makes sense." Finn returned to the phone. The answer came shorter. This time the tone on the other side had changed. It was no longer a threat. It was a negotiation. Finn relaxed his shoulders slightly without realizing it. "He wants to know who he's speaking to," he translated. One of the executives let out a nervous laugh. "Tell him it's someone began," Marcus interrupted. "Tell him your first name." Finn swallowed. "My name is Finn," he said. There was a pause. The answer came softer than before. "He asked if I am responsible for the negotiation," he translated, confused. Marcus stepped closer. "Tell him you are assisting the responsible team," he guided. Finn repeated, choosing his words carefully. The man replied with something he didn't immediately understand. A word escaped him. He closed his eyes for a second. "Can you repeat, please?" he asked in German. A little slower. The entire room held its breath. The repetition came clearer. Finn understood. "He wants the name of the person who signs the contract," he said, looking at Marcus. "Me," he replied without hesitation. Finn informed him. The conversation continued for a few more minutes. They weren't long, but they seemed eternal to those watching from outside. Finn didn't make speeches. He didn't try to impress. He just answered, translated, confirmed. At one point, he almost got confused with a legal term. He stopped mid-sentence. "Wait," he said quietly, covering the microphone with his hand. "Confirm this part for me." A lawyer quickly approached, pointing to the document. "That's right." Finn nodded and resumed. On the other side of the line, the man took a deep breath. "Finn." He heard it clearly. "He said he will wait for the email," he translated, "and that if he receives it today, the process continues." Marcus signaled the legal department. Now, Finn's last sentence came calmly. "We will confirm in writing within a few minutes. We appreciate your patience." He pulled the phone away from his ear. The dry click of the finished call echoed louder than it should have. For a few seconds, no one said anything. There was no applause, no celebration, just people looking at each other, trying to understand what had just happened. "Who is this kid?" someone murmured, almost voiceless. Finn felt the weight of the silence fall upon him. The phone was still in his hand. He returned it to the staffer carefully, as if it were something too fragile. "Can I go?" he asked softly. Claire immediately stepped forward. "We're leaving now," she said hastily, her voice trembling. Marcus raised his hand. "One moment," he requested. Claire froze. Marcus looked at Finn again. Now there was no calculation. There was something harder to define. "You said you learned it from your Oma," Marcus commented. Finn nodded. Yes, sir. I want to understand that better, he said next, choosing his words. Finn nodded, not knowing if that was good or bad. Outside the room, the legal department was already typing frantically. The contract wasn't closed yet, but it wasn't lost, and everyone there knew it. Nothing would ever be the same after that moment. The sun no longer streamed in with the same intensity through the windows when Claire finished the last hallway. The building was quieter. The morning rush was behind them, replaced by a contained tiredness, the kind that comes after prolonged tension. Finn was sitting in one of the chairs in the support area, hugging his backpack to his chest. He didn't say anything. Since they had left the meeting room, no one had said exactly what was going to happen. They only knew they hadn't been kicked out yet. Are you all right? Claire asked quietly as she put the cloth back in the trolley. Finn nodded without much conviction. I'm fine. In reality, he didn't know how to say it. His body was there, but his head was still trapped in that moment when all the adults had stopped to listen to him. He didn't like that feeling. He didn't like being the center of attention, especially not in that place. An assistant appeared a few minutes later. Mr. Thorne asked you to wait, he said in a neutral tone. He'll call you in shortly. Claire felt her stomach churn. Now? She barely asked. The man walked away without waiting for an answer. Claire sat down next to her son, ran her hand through his hair in an automatic gesture, trying to calm herself more than the boy. Whatever God wills, she murmured. Finn didn't respond. He thought about his Oma. The way she said that, when you do something right, you don't always understand why, at the moment, but you understand later. Almost an hour passed before the same assistant returned. You can come in now. Marcus Thorne's office was smaller than Finn imagined. There was nothing grand about it. A too-tidy desk, 2 chairs in front, a window with a view of the city, a functional, cold, but not hostile space. Marcus was without his jacket, his shirt sleeves rolled up. He looked more tired than powerful. You can sit down, he said, gesturing to the chairs. Claire sat down carefully, as if she were occupying a place that didn't belong to her. Finn sat beside her, keeping his hands on his backpack. For a few seconds, no one said anything. I said earlier that I wanted to understand better, Marcus began, breaking the silence. And I still do, but not to reproach, but to comprehend. Claire squeezed her fingers. We didn't want to cause trouble, she said quickly. I know I shouldn't have brought my son, but it was just for today. It was a favor I asked. Marcus raised his hand, interrupting. It's not about that, he said. That's past. He turned his gaze back to Finn. You seem very young to carry that kind of responsibility, he commented. Finn shrugged. I didn't want responsibility, he replied. I just didn't want it to go wrong. Marcus nodded slowly. You spoke about your Oma, he said. Tell me calmly. Finn took a deep breath. He didn't like talking about that part of his life with strangers, but something in Marcus's tone wasn't invasive. It was attentive. She came from Germany when she was young, he began. She married here, but she never really felt like she belonged here. Claire watched in silence. This story wasn't new, but hearing her son tell it gave it another dimension. She said that if she stopped speaking German, she would disappear, Finn continued. So she spoke to me all the time about simple things, about the day, about homesickness. Marcus listened without interrupting. I stayed with her almost every night, Finn said. My mum was working. We ate dinner together. She taught me words as one teaches affection. Finn hesitated for an instant before continuing. When she got sick, she stopped leaving the house, he said. But she kept talking to me, even tired, even weak. Claire swallowed. She was the one who stayed when Finn's father left. She completed. We supported each other as best we could. Marcus looked away toward the window for a moment. Is she still alive? He asked. No, Finn replied in a thread of a voice. 2 years ago. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was respectful. So, Marcus said, looking back at him, you didn't learn German to use it. You learned it not to lose someone. Finn nodded. I think so. Marcus took a deep breath, crossing his hands on the desk. Everyone in that room today was prepared, he said. Degrees, titles, experience. And yet, no one could solve it. He paused. You could, because you listened before, for a long time. Claire felt her eyes well up, but she didn't say anything. I don't believe in coincidences, Marcus continued. I believe in contexts, and your context is tough. He leaned back in his chair. I still need to finish a few things today, he said. But I want to make one thing clear. Claire stiffened. What happened won't be ignored, he affirmed. Not as a favor, not as charity. Finn squeezed the strap of his backpack. I don't want anything, he said quickly. Marcus smiled slightly. Not an easy smile, a tired smile. I know, he replied. And that's exactly why I want to think calmly about what comes next. He stood up. I'll call you again tomorrow or the day after, he said unhurriedly, without fuss. Claire stood up too. Uncertainly. Thank you for not, she began. Unsure how to finish. For seeing, he completed. She nodded. Marcus opened the door. Sometimes, he said, you only realize what you have when you almost lose it. In the hallway, Claire and Finn walked together in silence. The building seemed different now, not less cold, but changed. Mum, Finn said, near the lift. Did I do the right thing? Claire stopped. She looked at her son firmly. You did the right thing, she replied, even if nothing else happens. Finn took a deep breath. He didn't know what would come next, but for the first time since early on, he wasn't afraid of what he had done. The next morning, the company woke up differently, not calmer, just less chaotic. The crisis hadn't been forgotten, but it had been contained. The German contract still required adjustments, revisions, signatures. Nothing was officially closed. Even so, no one was talking about collapse anymore. Marcus Thorne arrived early, before most. He entered the building without long greetings, as he always did, but something about him was off pattern. It wasn't anxiety, it was unease. He walked straight past reception and went up to his office. He pulled his mobile phone from his pocket and reread the email sent the night before. The confirmation from the German partners was objective, without praise, without enthusiasm. Just professional. That's how it worked in the real world. It always worked that way. Even so, Marcus couldn't shake an image from his head. A boy sitting in a hallway holding an old backpack, while well-prepared adults stalled in the face of a problem too simple to be ignored. He closed his laptop harder than he intended. Soon after, he called the legal department, asked for the report, reviewed details, and confirmed that everything was being done on time. When he finished, he rested his elbows on the desk and stayed there for a few seconds. It wasn't typical for him. Claire arrived for her extra shift at the usual time. She didn't comment to anyone. She put on her uniform, took the trolley, and started work as if nothing had happened. That's how she survived, by not creating expectations. But the glances had changed. A staffer greeted her with a nod. A man made space in the hallway without complaining. Small gestures, nothing explicit, yet different. Claire noticed it. She pretended not to notice. Finn wasn't there that day. School had resumed classes. The notebook was now on a simple desk in an ordinary classroom, while his mum moved through hallways that until yesterday seemed unreachable. Midway through the morning, Marcus left his office and walked the floor. He didn't announce his presence, he just observed. He saw focused staffers, tense ones, and some oblivious ones. He passed the support area, where the day before Claire had pushed the trolley with too much haste. He stopped there for an instant. "Claire," he called. She turned immediately, her heart accelerating. "Yes, sir." Marcus noticed the reflex. That wasn't respect. It was trained fear. "Can you come with me for a minute?" he asked. Claire hesitated only long enough to drop the cloth. "Of course." They walked to a small room away from the main area. It wasn't a meeting room. It was almost an unused secondary office. "Sit down," Marcus said, gesturing to the chair. Claire sat carefully. "I won't take up much of your time," he began. "I just need to clarify a few things." She remained silent. "Yesterday," Marcus said, "you apologized several times before anyone even said anything." Claire pressed her hands into her lap. "It's habit," she replied. "You learn to anticipate." Marcus was silent for a few seconds. "Why did you bring your son?" he asked without harshness. Claire took a deep breath. "Because I didn't have a choice," she replied. "School was closed. I needed the extra shift, and I needed to keep the job." Marcus nodded slowly. "You knew that could cost you the job." "I know," she said, "but sometimes the risk already exists, even if you don't choose it." The answer hung in the air. "You never spoke about what your son knows," Marcus commented. "I never thought it mattered," Claire replied. "Not for this kind of place." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "This kind of place," he repeated. "That's what bothers me." He leaned forward slightly. "Yesterday, a room full of professionals stalled," he said. "Not because of incompetence, but because of structure, because of habit, because of assuming that certain resources always come from the same places." Claire didn't respond. "Your son didn't save a contract," Marcus continued. "He saved a conversation because he listened before, because he wasn't afraid to look small." Claire felt her eyes sting, but she maintained her posture. It wasn't luck, he said. It was character and attention. Marcus stood up. I won't pretend this didn't happen, he affirmed. And I also won't turn it into a spectacle. He walked to the door, then turned back to her. I know I already said it, but I want you and your son to come back here another day, calmly, outside of your shift, to talk properly. Claire's stomach tightened. If it's two, she started. It's not a dismissal, he cut in, nor a warning. She looked at him suspiciously. I need to think, Marcus continued. And you need to understand what this means. Claire stood up. Thank you for calling me, she said, unsure if it was a good or bad thing. Marcus opened the door. Sometimes, he said, the company needs to be confronted to remember who is inside it. Claire left the room with a heavy, but different, heart. Not relieved, not hopeful, just attentive. At the end of her shift, she called Finn. He wants to talk to us again? She said. Is it good news? Her son asked on the other end. Claire looked toward the building before answering. I don't know yet, she said, but it's serious. Finn was silent for a few seconds. Then, that's fine, he replied. We'll go together. Claire hung up and took a deep breath. Some doors don't open suddenly, they creak first. And Marcus knew it. If he ignored that creak, he wouldn't be saving a contract, he would be losing something much greater. Marcus didn't schedule the conversation for the next day, nor did he let too much time pass. He waited long enough for the dust to settle, but not so long that it seemed like forgetfulness. 3 days later, he asked them to contact Claire. Mr. Thorne would like to speak with you and your son, the voice on the other end of the line said. It can be tomorrow afternoon. Claire hung up with the strange feeling of someone walking on unstable ground. It wasn't a formal summons, nor was it kindness. It was something in between, and that kept her alert. The next day, she arrived earlier than agreed. She wore the same simple clothes as always, but she had spent more time than normal choosing them. Finn walked beside her, backpack on his back, expression closed. He wasn't scared, he was suspicious. They were led to a smaller room, away from the meeting areas and the more trafficked hallways. A neutral space with a simple table, 3 chairs, and a side window. Marcus was already there when they entered. Thank you for coming, he said, standing up. Please sit down. There was no exaggerated formality, nor was there intimacy, just clarity. Marcus waited for them to get settled before continuing. I've thought a lot since that day, he began. Not just about the contract, but about what happened around it. Claire kept her hands crossed in her lap. Finn looked at the table. What your son did wasn't common, he said. But it wasn't a miracle either. It was a consequence. Finn looked up, confused. Consequence of what? He asked. Of time, Marcus replied. Of listening, of attention, of something that isn't usually valued in environments like this. He took a deep breath before continuing. I don't want to turn this into a nice story, he continued. It doesn't seem fair to you or to me. Claire swallowed. Then I'll be direct. He opened a folder and placed some papers on the table. Finn, you are 12 years old. You are not an adult. You are not an employee, and you shouldn't carry responsibilities that aren't yours. Finn nodded slowly. That's why, Marcus said, any proposal I make isn't about now, it's about what comes next. He slid one of the papers toward them. I want to offer you a scholarship to a high school that has strong language teaching, he explained, German included, with materials, transport, and academic support. Finn opened his eyes. I didn't ask for this, he said quickly. I know, Marcus replied. That's why I'm offering it. Claire felt her heart pound. And it's not a favor, he continued. It's an investment, because talent without structure gets lost. Finn bit his lower lip. I don't want my mum to have problems because of me, he said. Marcus turned to Claire. Your mum won't have problems, he affirmed. On the contrary, he took out another document. Claire, I don't know exactly how your current contract works, he said, but I know it's not fair. Claire felt her face burn. I work nights, she replied. I take extra shifts when they call. And you live on the edge, he completed. That's not sustainable either, he explained the options carefully. Shift adjustment, permanent team contract, basic benefits, nothing out of the ordinary, nothing that seemed like a prize. I'm not offering money in exchange for what happened, he said. I'm offering dignity so you don't have to choose between working and protecting your son. Silence filled the room. Finn looked at his mother. Claire didn't know what to say. All of this seemed too big to absorb at once. I don't know if I can accept, Claire finally said. I've never received anything like this. Marcus nodded. Accepting isn't begging, he replied. It's recognizing that someone saw value where before there was only function. Finn squeezed the strap of his backpack. My Oma, he began, hesitating. She would have liked this. Marcus smiled slightly. I imagine so. He leaned back in his chair. I don't need an answer now, he said. Think about it, talk about it. Come back when you're ready. Claire took a deep breath. And if we say no, she asked, then nothing changes? He replied. But I hope you don't say no. Finn was silent for a few seconds, then looked up. If I accept, he said, it's because I want to learn, not because I answered a phone one day. Marcus nodded. That's exactly what I expect. When they left the room, the hallway seemed less hostile, not more welcoming, just human. Claire walked slowly, as if she was still afraid that someone would say all of this was a mistake. In the lift, Finn broke the silence. Mom, he said, if we accept, life is going to change. Claire thought before answering. It's going to change, she said, but not because someone wanted it to, but because you opened a door that already existed. Finn rested his head against the lift glass. He didn't know exactly what would come next, but he knew one thing. He wouldn't return to the same place as before. The following days were strange. Claire continued her routine as if nothing had changed, because in practice, it hadn't changed yet. She arrived for her shift, cleaned the hallways, avoided glances, but something inside her was moving. A silent hope she didn't dare to name. Finn also felt that strangeness. At school, his classmates talked about everyday things, video games, TV shows, unimportant gossip, and he felt he carried something different. Now it wasn't pride. It was weight. The weight of having done something important without having planned it. One afternoon, when Claire got home after her shift, she found Finn sitting on the sofa with his notebook open. But he wasn't writing. He was just looking at the pages. What's wrong? She asked, leaving her bag on the table. Finn took a moment to answer. I was thinking about Oma, he said, about everything she taught me. Claire sat down next to him. She would be proud. Finn nodded, but I don't know if I deserve all this. Claire looked at him intently. It's not about deserving, Finn. It's about taking the opportunity. He lowered his gaze. I'm afraid of letting people down. Claire ran her hand through her son's hair. We are all afraid, she replied. But fear is no reason not to try. Finn closed the notebook. Are you going to accept what Mr. Thorne offered? He asked. Claire took a deep breath. I don't know yet, she admitted, but I think it would be silly not to. Then, let's do it, Finn said. Together. Claire smiled. Together, she repeated. 2 days later, Claire called the number Marcus had given her. The voice on the other end connected her directly to him. G'day, Claire, Marcus said. Have you thought about it? Yes, she replied. We want to accept. There was a brief pause on the other end. I'm happy to hear that, he said. I'll start organizing everything. Can you come in on Monday? Yes, sir, Claire replied. When she hung up, she felt her hands tremble. Not from fear, but from something akin to hope. Finn was in his room when she entered. It's done, she said. We accepted. Finn looked up. And now? Now, Claire said. We start again. The weekend passed slowly. Claire tried to remain calm, but anxiety dominated her. She cleaned the house more than necessary. She organized things that were already organized. She cooked with more attention than usual. Finn, for his part, spent hours rereading his notebook. His Oma's words seemed more alive now, more real, as if she were there guiding him. On Sunday night, Claire sat with Finn at the kitchen table. I want you to know something, she said. What's coming won't be easy. Finn nodded. I know. There will be people who think we don't deserve this, she continued. That it was luck, that it was a coincidence. Finn looked at her intently. And what do you think? Claire smiled slightly. I think we worked hard all our lives, and this is not a gift, it's recognition. Finn nodded. Then, that's fine. Monday arrived with a strange clarity. The sky was clear, the air fresh. Claire dressed with more care than normal. Not elegant clothes, just clean, ironed, dignified. Finn also prepared. He packed his notebook in his backpack, as he always did. He didn't know if he would need it, but it gave him security to carry it. They arrived at the building before the agreed time. The security guard recognized them this time. Good morning, he said with a brief smile. Claire nodded, surprised. Good morning. They went up to Marcus's office floor. This time there was no tension in the air, only expectation. When they entered, Marcus was already waiting for them. He had several documents on the desk, all precisely organized. Please sit down, he said. We will review everything calmly. They spent the next hour going over details. The school for Finn, the contract change for Claire, the benefits, the schedules, the responsibilities. Everything was explained clearly, without fine print, without traps. "Do you have any questions?" Marcus asked at the end. Claire hesitated before speaking. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "Truly." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "Because that day I realized something," he replied. "This company has resources, it has skilled people, it has structure, but we almost lost everything because we didn't know how to see what we had in front of us." He looked at Finn. "Your son didn't just solve a problem. He showed me that talent is everywhere, only sometimes we don't look for it in the right places." Claire felt her eyes well up. "Thank you," she said simply. Marcus nodded. "Don't thank me yet. The real work starts now." Finn looked at the documents on the table. "When do I start at the new school?" he asked. "Next week," Marcus replied. "They are already aware of your arrival." Finn nodded, feeling the weight of reality. It was real. It was happening. Claire signed the papers with a trembling hand. Each signature seemed to close one stage and open another. When she finished, Marcus extended his hand. "Welcome to the permanent team," he said. Claire shook his hand, feeling for the first time in a long time that she wasn't invisible. Finn also signed the scholarship documents. His signature was small, shaky, but it was there. When they left the office, the world seemed different. Nothing had changed on the street, in the building, in the city, but something inside them was different. In the lift, Claire hugged her son. "We did it," she whispered. Finn nodded against his mother's shoulder. "We did it," he repeated. When the lift doors opened, they walked out together onto the street. The sun shone brighter. Now the city seemed clearer, more alive. Claire took a deep breath. For the first time in years, she wasn't afraid of tomorrow. Finn walked beside her, backpack on his back, looking ahead. He didn't know exactly what awaited him, but he knew one thing. He wasn't alone, and that was enough. That night, Claire called her sister to tell her everything. The conversation lasted more than an hour. There were tears, laughter, disbelief. When she hung up, Claire sat on the sofa and looked around. The house was the same, small, modest, with walls that needed paint, but now it looked different. It looked like a starting point, not a limit. Finn was in his room, writing in his notebook. Not words in German this time, but thoughts in English. Reflections on what had happened, on what would come. He wrote about his Oma, about how she had given him something without knowing it. Not just a language, but the ability to listen, to pay attention, not to be afraid. He closed the notebook and put it in his backpack. Tomorrow would be the beginning of something new, and he was ready. The first week at the new school was harder than Finn had imagined. Not because the classes were complicated, but because everything was different. The hallways were wider, the classrooms had better lighting, the desks didn't creak when you sat down. Even the smell was different, a mixture of new books and expensive cleaning products. Finn arrived on the first day with the worn-out backpack he had used for years. Claire had wanted to buy him a new one, but he refused. "I don't need to change everything at once," he had said. And she understood. The principal welcomed him personally. "Welcome, Finn," she said, with a professional smile. "I hope you feel comfortable here." Finn nodded without saying much. The woman led him to his classroom, a spacious area with large windows that let in natural light. The other students were already sitting, conversing among themselves with familiarity. When he entered, some turned to look at him. Others didn't even look up. "Class, we have a new student," the teacher announced. "Finn, you can sit back there by the window." Finn walked between the desks, feeling every gaze. He sat down in silence, took out his worn notebook, and placed it on the table. A boy next to him looked at him curiously, but didn't say anything. Class began. It was maths, a subject Finn mastered well, but he didn't participate. He kept his head down, took notes, and tried to go unnoticed. It was his strategy, the one that had always worked. At recess, he stayed in the classroom while the others ran out to the playground. He wasn't hungry. He didn't feel like socializing. He just wanted the day to end. A girl approached him before leaving. "Aren't you going outside?" she asked. Finn shook his head. "I'm fine here," the girl shrugged. "Suit yourself. I'm Valentina, by the way." "Finn," he replied, although she already knew it. Valentina left, and Finn stayed alone. He looked out the window at the playground. Groups of students talked, laughed, shared food. Everyone seemed to have known each other for years. Everyone seemed to belong. He didn't. The afternoon passed slowly. More classes, more glances, more silence. When the final bell rang, Finn was the first to get up. He quickly packed his things and left without saying goodbye. Claire was waiting for him at the school gate. She had asked for permission at work to be there. When she saw her son come out, she immediately noticed the expression on his face. "How was it?" she asked as they walked toward the bus stop. "Fine," Finn replied without looking at her. Claire knew it wasn't true, but she didn't insist. Give him time, she thought. He just needs time. That night, Finn barely touched his dinner. He shut himself in his room and opened his notebook. He wrote a single sentence. "I don't know if I belong here." The following days were similar. Finn attended classes, paid attention, did his homework, but he didn't talk to anyone, didn't ask questions, didn't raise his hand, even though he knew the answers. The teachers began to notice. In the staff room, they commented on the new boy who was smart, but too quiet. "We should talk to him," one suggested. "Give him time," another replied. "It's normal to be nervous." But Claire couldn't stay calm. She saw her son closing off more each day. She saw how he returned home with the same empty expression, how he pretended everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. One night after dinner, she sat down across from him. "Finn, we need to talk," she said. He looked up from his notebook. "About what?" "About school. About how you really feel." Finn sighed. "I'm fine, Mum." "Don't lie to me," Claire said firmly. "I know you. I know when something is bothering you." Finn lowered his gaze. "It's not that something is bothering me," he said slowly. "It's just that I don't fit in." Claire felt her chest tighten. "Why do you say that?" "Because everyone there comes from different families," Finn explained. "They have new clothes, expensive mobile phones. They talk about trips and things I've never had. And me, I'm the cleaner's son." Claire felt tears well up, but she held them back. "Listen to me closely," she said, taking her son's hands. "You are no less than anyone because of that. You earned your place in that school because you have talent, because you have dedication." Finn shook his head. "No one sees me that way, Mum. They see me as the poor kid who got lucky." Claire squeezed his hands. "Then, prove them wrong." Finn looked at her, confused. "How?" "By being yourself," she replied. "Not hiding, not pretending to be someone you're not, showing what you know, what you can do." Finn didn't answer, but something in his eyes changed slightly. The next day, Finn arrived at school with the same worn backpack, the same simple clothes, but something in his posture was different. He didn't walk with his head so low. In the German class, the teacher asked for volunteers to read a text aloud. No one raised their hand. Everyone looked at the book with confused expressions. The teacher sighed. "No one wants to try?" Silence. Finn felt his heart beat faster. He remembered his mum's words. He remembered his Oma's voice. He remembered that day in the building when he had to decide whether to speak or stay quiet. He raised his hand. The teacher looked at him in surprise. "Finn, do you want to try?" Finn nodded. "Yes." He stood up, took the book, and began to read. His pronunciation was perfect, fluent, natural. The words came out effortlessly, with the correct accent, with the precise intonation. The room fell silent. Everyone was looking at him now, but not with mockery or superficial curiosity. They looked at him with genuine astonishment. When he finished, the teacher applauded. "Excellent, Finn. Truly excellent. Where did you learn to speak like that?" "From my Oma," Finn replied simply. The teacher nodded, impressed. "It shows that you learned from someone who really knew the language." "She was a native speaker, wasn't she?" "Yes," Finn said, "from Berlin." During recess, several students approached him. Valentina was the first. "That was incredible," she said. "Seriously, you speak German that well?" Finn shrugged. "Yeah, I guess so." "Can you teach me?" she asked. "I'm failing that class." Finn hesitated. "I'm not a teacher," he said. "But you speak better than the teacher," she insisted. "Please." Finn looked around. Other students also seemed interested. "Okay," he finally said. "I can help you." Valentina smiled. "Thanks. Let's have lunch together." Finn nodded. Sure. For the first time since he had arrived at that school, he didn't eat lunch alone. He sat with Valentina and two other students, who also had difficulties with German. They talked about the class, about the teacher, about the homework. It wasn't a magical transformation. Finn still felt out of place in many aspects, but it was a start. That afternoon, when Claire picked him up, she immediately noticed the change. Finn wasn't smiling broadly, but he also didn't have that empty expression from previous days. "How was today?" she asked. "Better," Finn replied. "Much better." Claire smiled. "I'm happy to hear that." On the bus ride home, Finn told her about the German class, about how he had read aloud, about how the other students had approached him. Claire listened with a full heart. This was the son she knew, the one who wasn't afraid to show what he knew, the one who helped without expecting anything in return. When they got home, Finn took out his notebook and crossed out the sentence he had written days before. I don't know if I belong here. Below it, he wrote a new one. I am still finding my place, but I will find it. The following weeks brought more changes. Finn began to participate more in class, not just in German, but in all subjects. The teachers noticed his intelligence, his dedication, his analytical ability. In maths, he solved a problem that no one else had been able to. In history, he gave a presentation on German immigration in Australia that impressed the whole class. In literature, he wrote an essay on the importance of preserving mother tongues that the teacher read aloud as an example. Slowly, Finn stopped being the new kid to simply become Finn, the brilliant student, the classmate willing to help, the one who spoke German as if he had been born there. But not everything was easy. There were moments of doubt, days when he felt exhausted by the effort of constantly demonstrating his worth, nights when he wondered if it would ever be enough. One afternoon, after a particularly difficult exam, he came home quieter than usual. Claire noticed it immediately. What happened, she asked. Finn dropped his backpack on the sofa. Nothing, he said. I'm just tired. Claire sat beside him. It's more than that. Finn sighed. Sometimes I feel like I have to be perfect, he admitted, as if any mistake would confirm what some people think, that I shouldn't be here. Claire took his face in her hands. Listen to me closely, she said, looking him in the eyes. You don't have to be perfect. No one is. The only thing you have to do is your best effort, and you are already doing that. Finn felt tears well up. It's hard, Mum. I know, she replied. But look at everything you've already achieved. Look how far you've come. Finn nodded, letting the tears fall. Claire hugged him tightly, letting him vent. When they separated, Finn wiped his face. Thanks, Mum. Always, she replied. That night, Finn wrote a long reflection in his notebook about pressure, about expectations, about the fear of failure, but also about gratitude, about opportunities, about his mother's love and his Oma's memory. He ended with a phrase he would repeat to himself on difficult days. I don't need to be perfect, I just need to be authentic. At the end of the first month, the school organized a cultural presentation. Each student had to share something about their heritage or interests. Many chose elaborate presentations with videos and music. Finn chose something simpler. He stood in front of the class and recited a poem in German that his Oma used to tell him. He recited it slowly, with emotion, his voice cracking slightly in some parts. When he finished, there was a deep silence. Then, applause. Valentina approached him afterward. That was beautiful, she said, her eyes shining. Your Oma would be proud. Finn smiled. I hope so. That afternoon, when Claire came to pick him up, Finn ran to her with a genuine smile. Mom, he said, I think I finally found my place. Claire hugged him tightly. You always had it, she replied. You just needed time to see it. They walked together toward the bus stop, talking about the day, about the presentation, about plans for the weekend. For the first time in a long time, both felt at peace. The road hadn't been easy. There would still be challenges ahead. But now, they knew something fundamental. They weren't alone, and that made all the difference. While Finn adapted to his new school reality, Claire faced her own transformation. The change from the night shift to the day shift had been more significant than she imagined. Not just because of the recovered sleep hours, but because of everything that represented. For the first time in years, she could walk the company hallways in the daylight. She could see the faces of the people she shared the building with. She could feel that she existed, not just as a shadow passing by at night, cleaning up what others dirtied. But the transition wasn't simple. The first day on the permanent shift, Claire arrived at the building with a mixture of nervousness and hope. The security guard greeted her differently this time. Good morning, Claire, he said, using her name. You have your new pass at reception. Claire nodded, still not used to being recognized. Thank you. At reception, a woman handed her the new pass. This one is permanent, she explained. You don't need to renew it every month anymore. Claire took the card with trembling hands. It was a small thing, but for her, it meant stability. It meant she wasn't temporary, that they couldn't dismiss her overnight without reason. She went up to the services level where she would now be based. The supervisor was waiting for her there, a middle-aged man named Alistair, who had been with the company for 20 years. Welcome to the team, Claire, he said, extending his hand. We'll work well together. Claire shook his hand. Thanks for the opportunity. Alistair showed her the new assigned areas. He explained the schedules, the routines, the expectations. Everything was more organized than before, more structured. It was no longer a matter of showing up when called and doing what was urgent. Now there was a plan, a system, a rhythm. "You'll notice we work differently here," Alistair said as they walked. "It's not just about cleaning. It's about maintaining, anticipating, caring for the spaces." Claire listened attentively, absorbing every word. "I understand. And another thing," he continued. "Everyone here treats each other with respect, no matter the position, no matter the role. We are a team." Claire felt something loosen in her chest, something that had been tight for so long she hadn't even noticed it. It was the constant fear, the always being on alert, the expecting mistreatment as something normal. "Thank you," she said, simply because she couldn't find other words. The first few days were for adaptation. Claire met her new colleagues, 3 other members of the cleaning team who worked the same shift, 2 women and a man, all with years of experience. At first, they were cautious with her. They knew she had arrived differently, that her story was particular, but Claire didn't expect special treatment. She worked hard, arrived early, and stayed until everything was completed. One of her colleagues, a woman named Patricia, approached her after the first week. "You work well," she commented as they organized the trolleys. "You don't wait for others to do your part." Claire shrugged. "That's how I was taught." Patricia smiled. "It shows. By the way, a few of us grab a coffee before the shift. If you want to join, you're welcome." Claire felt something warm expand in her chest. "I'd like that," she replied. It was a simple gesture, a casual invitation, but for Claire, it meant acceptance. It meant she wasn't just the one Marcus Thorne helped, but a colleague. Mornings began to have a new rhythm. Claire woke up early, prepared breakfast for Finn, walked him to the bus stop, and then took her own to work. She arrived 15 minutes before her shift. She had a coffee with Patricia and the others, talking about everyday things. It was a normal life. And for Claire, who had never had a truly normal life, that was extraordinary. But not everything was easy. There were still glances, still whispers. "That's the woman they talk about," Claire heard one day as she walked down a hallway. "The one the boss helped." "Yeah," another voice replied. "Because of the son who saved the German contract." Claire squeezed the handle of the trolley tighter and kept walking. She didn't stop. She didn't look back. But the words resonated. That night, while having dinner with Finn, he noticed her silence. "Are you all right, Mum?" he asked. Claire nodded. "Just tired," but Finn knew her too well. "It's more than that," Claire sighed. "Sometimes I hear what people say," she admitted, "about us, about how we got here." Finn put down his fork. "What do they say? That it was luck? That it was a favor? That it's not based on merit?" Claire explained. "And even though I know it's not true, sometimes the words weigh on you." Finn looked at his mother with a maturity that didn't correspond to his 12 years. "You know what I learned at school?" he said. "That people will always have opinions, but the only thing that matters is what you know about yourself." Claire smiled, her eyes moist. "When did you get so wise?" "When I had a mum who taught me not to give up," he replied with a small smile. They both remained like that for a moment, in silence, reminding each other that they weren't alone. Days turned into weeks. Claire began to feel more comfortable in her new role. She knew the spaces better, anticipated needs, and worked efficiently. Alistair regularly complimented her performance. One day, while cleaning near the executive offices, she saw Marcus leaving a meeting. He noticed her and approached. "Claire, how are things?" he asked. "Good, sir," she replied. "Thank you." Marcus shook his head. "Don't thank me. You earned this." Claire nodded, but something in her expression made Marcus stop. "Is something wrong?" he asked. Claire hesitated before answering. "Sometimes I wonder if people think I don't deserve to be here," she admitted, that it was only because Finn helped that day. Marcus looked at her intently. "And what do you think?" Claire took a deep breath. "I think I've worked my whole life. That I've been responsible, dedicated, that I've never been absent without reason, that I deserve stability as much as anyone." "Exactly," Marcus said. "And if anyone thinks differently, that's their problem, not yours." Claire felt something strengthen inside her. "You're right," Marcus nodded. "Keep working as you are. The results speak for themselves." When he walked away, Claire stood still for a moment. Then she returned to her work, but now with her back a little straighter, her head a little higher. That afternoon, Patricia invited her to lunch with the team in the staff canteen. It was the first time Claire had entered there as a permanent employee. Before, when she worked sporadic night shifts, she ate alone in a corner, quickly, without drawing attention. Now she sat at a table with her colleagues, conversing, laughing. They talked about their families, their weekend plans, their everyday worries. "My daughter wants a dog," Patricia was saying. "But we live in a tiny flat. Mine wants to go to a gig," another commented. "But the tickets are way too expensive." Claire listened more than she spoke, but she felt part of something. It was a new, warm, comforting feeling. "And your son?" Patricia asked. "How's he going at the new school?" Claire smiled. "Good. He had a difficult start, but now he's finding his place. He's a good kid." Alistair, who had joined the table, commented. "I saw him that day of the call. He has guts." Claire nodded with pride. "He does." When lunch ended, Claire returned to her work feeling different. Not just grateful for the opportunity, but deserving of it. It wasn't charity. It wasn't a favor. It was recognition of years of hard work, of silent dedication, of never having given up. At the end of the day, while putting away her things in the assigned locker, another symbol of permanence, Claire looked at herself in the small mirror she had taped inside. The woman looking back at her had wrinkles from tiredness, rough hands from years of hard work, but she also had eyes brighter than before, a firmer posture. She was the same woman who had entered that building months ago, nervous and scared, hoping to be invisible, but now she saw herself, and that changed everything. Weeks turned into months. Claire's routine became natural, automatic. She knew every corner of the building, every difficult stain, every detail that required special attention, but more importantly, she knew the people. She learned the names of the executives who passed quickly. She knew who drank black coffee and who preferred it with milk. She knew which offices stayed tidy and which were always a mess. And something curious began to happen. People started to greet her. It wasn't universal. Many still passed without seeing her, absorbed in their phones, in their worries, but others stopped. "Good morning, Claire. How are you going? How is your son?" At first, Claire responded with surprise, almost with distrust, but gradually, she learned to accept these interactions as what they were: basic human recognition. One morning, while cleaning the break area, one of the young female executives approached her. "Excuse me, are you the mom of the boy who speaks German?" she asked. Claire straightened up. "Yes, I am," the woman smiled. "My younger brother is at the same school. He told me about the presentation your son did, said it was impressive." Claire felt her chest swell with pride. "He's a good kid." "He clearly had a good teacher," the executive commented. "Not many kids value learning like him." When the woman walked away, Claire stood holding the cleaning cloth, feeling something warm run through her body. It wasn't just pride for Finn. It was something deeper. It was validation that all the effort, all the sacrifices, all the sleepless nights had been worth it. But not everything was a luminous moment. There were dark days too. One day, while cleaning near the executive offices, she overheard a conversation not meant for her ears. "It's obvious Marcus did this for image," a male voice was saying. "After the contract thing, he needed to look good." Another voice replied with a cynical tone. "Typical. They hire a cleaner permanently, give the kid benefits, and wash their hands, saying they're an inclusive company." Claire felt her stomach contract. She froze behind the door, her heart pounding. "At least the kid seems smart," the first voice continued. "But how long will it last? These charity cases never end well." Claire clenched her fists. She wanted to go in. She wanted to defend herself. She wanted to yell that they were wrong, but she knew she couldn't. She knew that giving them the satisfaction of seeing her affected would only confirm their prejudices. She took a deep breath, forced herself to calm down, and continued with her work. But the words remained stuck like thorns. That night, Claire didn't tell Finn anything. She didn't want to burden him with the weight of outside opinions. He already had enough with his own battles, but Finn noticed anyway. "Mum, are you sure you're okay?" he asked as they ate dinner. Claire forced a smile. "Just a long day." Finn observed her with those eyes that seemed to see too much. "If anyone says anything bad to you, don't listen to them," he said. "We know the truth." Claire felt her eyes well up. "How did you get so perceptive?" "I had a good teacher," Finn replied with a small smile. It was an echo of what the executive had said that morning. Claire laughed softly, wiping her eyes. "I suppose you did." The days continued. Claire kept working with the same dedication, with the same excellence. Not to prove anything to anyone, but because it was who she was. Hard work was in her nature, in her bones. One Friday afternoon, Alistair called her into his office. Claire felt a moment of irrational panic. Had she done something wrong? Were they going to sack her? "Relax," Alistair said, noticing her expression. It's good news. Claire breathed a sigh of relief. What is it? Alistair handed her an envelope. It's your first quarter review, he explained. I want you to see it. Claire opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a document with various categories: punctuality, work quality, attitude, teamwork. In all categories, there were excellent marks. At the bottom, there was a handwritten comment. Claire has proven to be an exemplary employee. Her dedication and professionalism are an asset to the team. I recommend considering opportunities for growth. Claire read the words twice, 3 times. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. She started, but her voice broke. Alistair smiled. It's what you deserve. You've worked hard, Claire. And it shows. Claire felt the tears fall freely now. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me, Alistair replied. You earned this. When Claire left the office, she held the envelope against her chest as if it were the most precious object in the world. In a way, it was. It was tangible proof that it wasn't charity, it wasn't a favor. It was merit. That night, she showed the document to Finn. He read it carefully. Then he hugged her tightly. I'm proud of you, Mum. Claire laughed through her tears. I'm supposed to say that about you. We can be proud of each other, Finn replied. They stayed hugging for a long moment. 2 people who had fought so hard and were finally seeing the fruits of that struggle. On the weekend, Claire did something she hadn't done in years. She invited her sister over for a meal, not at an expensive restaurant, but at her house, with food she prepared herself. But it was a luxury to be able to do it without counting every cent, without worrying if it would be enough for the rest of the month. Her sister arrived with flowers, a simple but significant gesture. When she saw Claire's review framed in the kitchen, her eyes filled with tears. I always knew you were special, she said, hugging her sister. But now the world knows too. Claire shook her head. Not the world, just a few people, but it's enough. They ate, talked, and laughed. Finn told them about his classes, his new friends, and the German project he was working on. The house was filled with voices, joy, and life. When her sister left, Claire stood at the door, watching her walk away. Finn stood next to her. That was a good day, he commented. Claire put her arm over his shoulders. It was a very good day. The following Monday, Claire arrived at work with renewed energy. She greeted the guard by name, spoke briefly with the receptionist, and went up to the floor with a firm step. In the canteen, Patricia was waiting for her with coffee. I saw your review, she said with a smile. Alistair told us. Congratulations. Claire smiled. Thanks. You deserve it, Patricia continued. You've worked like no one else. As they drank coffee, Claire realized something. She wasn't alone. Not only did she have Finn, not only did she have her sister, she had colleagues, she had a team, she had people who saw her, who valued her. During her shift that day, Claire worked with a renewed sense of purpose. It wasn't just a job, it was her job. It wasn't just a place, it was her place. In the middle of the afternoon, while cleaning near the offices, she saw Marcus talking with some executives. He noticed her and gave her a brief nod. Claire responded the same way. They didn't need words. That simple exchange said everything necessary. Mutual recognition, respect, understanding that both had done their part. At the end of the day, while putting away her things, Claire looked around the locker room. Her name was on a locker. Her uniform hung clean and ironed. Her review had been excellent. It wasn't a perfect life. There were still challenges, still difficult days, but it was a dignified life. A life she had built with her own hands, with her own effort. And that, Claire thought as she closed her locker, was more than many had. She left the building with the sun still shining. Finn would be waiting for her at home, probably doing homework at the kitchen table. They would have dinner together, talk about their days, plan the future, a future that now, for the first time in a long time, seemed bright. Claire walked toward the bus stop with her head held high, her shoulders straight. She wasn't the same woman who had entered that building months ago, scared and apologizing for existing. She was someone stronger now, someone who knew her worth, someone who wasn't afraid to take up space. And when she boarded the bus and sat by the window, watching the city go by, Claire smiled because she finally understood something fundamental. She had never been invisible. She had just been waiting for someone to truly look. And now that they were, she was ready to shine. 6 months had passed since that day when a phone rang and changed everything. 6 months in which Finn had transformed his insecurity into confidence. In which Claire had stopped apologizing for existing. 6 months in which both had learned something fundamental. Value is not given. It is recognized. It was Friday afternoon, and the school was holding its annual semester closing event. Finn had been selected to give a speech representing the new students. When he was given the news, his first reaction was panic. "I can't do that," he told Claire that night. Speaking in front of the whole school, in front of the parents, in front of everyone, Claire looked at him with that expression he knew well, the one that meant she wouldn't accept excuses. "You already spoke in front of executives when you saved $1 million contract," she said. "This is no different." "It's completely different," Finn protested. "That was on the phone. This is face-to-face with hundreds of people." Claire sat down across from him. "Do you remember what I told you that time? It's not about being perfect. It's about being authentic," Finn said. "I remember." "Then, just be yourself," she said. "Tell your story. Words that come from the heart always find their way." Over the next few days, Finn worked on his speech. He wrote version after version, each one different from the last. Some were too formal, others too casual. Nothing felt right. One night, while struggling with the words, Claire entered his room. "Can I see?" she asked. Finn handed her the notebook with frustration. "It's not coming out right." Claire read in silence. Then she looked at her son. "You're trying to write what you think they want to hear," she said. "But what they need to hear is your truth." "And what is my truth?" Finn asked. Claire closed the notebook and handed it back to him. "That is an answer only you can give." That night, Finn stayed awake late. He closed his eyes and thought about his Oma. He thought about the afternoons at her house, about the smell of her kitchen, about the sound of her voice, teaching him words he never imagined he would use. He thought about his mum, working impossible shifts, sacrificing everything to give him opportunities. He thought about that day in the hallway when he had to decide whether to speak or stay quiet. And then the words began to flow. The day of the event arrived with a clear sky. Claire asked for permission at work to attend. Marcus personally approved her leave. "Go see your son," he told her. "This is important." When Claire arrived at the school auditorium, she was impressed by the size of the place. There were hundreds of chairs, a large stage, professional lighting. It was a completely different world from the one she knew. She sat in one of the middle rows, among other well-dressed parents who talked about holidays and universities. Claire wore her best clothes, but she still felt out of place until she remembered her son's words. "I don't need to be like them. I just need to be myself." The event began with the principal giving a welcome. Then there were musical performances, academic recognition, and sports awards. Claire applauded politely, but her heart beat faster as the moment for Finn's speech approached. Finally, the principal announced, "And now I would like to invite one of our new students to the stage, who will share some reflections with us, Finn Mendes." Claire felt her heart leap into her throat. She saw her son walk onto the stage with measured steps. He wore a simple but clean shirt, trousers she had carefully ironed that morning. They weren't expensive clothes, but they were dignified. Finn stood in front of the microphone. For a moment, he seemed to freeze. Claire could see the panic in his eyes as he looked at the sea of faces in front of him. But then Finn took a deep breath and began to speak. "Good afternoon. My name is Finn, and 6 months ago, I didn't know if I belonged here." His voice trembled slightly, but he continued. "I come from a different place than many of you. My mum works in cleaning. We live in a small flat where sometimes we hear the neighbors arguing through the walls. Before coming here, I went to a school where the books were torn and the windows didn't close well in winter." Claire felt the tears forming. Some parents in the auditorium shifted uncomfortably, but Finn didn't stop. "When I arrived here, I thought I would have to hide that. I thought I would have to pretend to be someone different. But my mum taught me something important. Origin doesn't define destiny. Effort does." Finn's voice became firmer. "I learned German with my Oma, not in an expensive school or with certified teachers. I learned it in a small kitchen among pots and memories, because she needed to speak her language so as not to forget who she was. And I needed to listen to her so as not to forget that the most valuable things don't always come packaged in luxury." Some parents began to pay closer attention. The students were completely silent. One day, that language I learned for love gave me the opportunity to help someone. And that help opened doors that I never thought would open, but it wasn't the language that really mattered. It was the attention, it was the dedication, it was not being afraid to use what I had, even if it wasn't perfect. Finn paused, searching for the right words. "Being here has taught me that privilege is not bad. Having resources is not bad. But ignoring those who don't have them, assuming that only certain people deserve opportunities, that is a problem. Claire saw some parents nod slowly. "I'm not here to make anyone feel guilty," Finn continued. "I'm here to remind you that talent exists everywhere. Intelligence exists everywhere. Dedication exists everywhere. But opportunity does not." His voice was now clear, strong, without a trace of fear. "So, to my classmates who come from families like mine, I say, don't be ashamed. Use your history as strength, not as an excuse. Work twice as hard if necessary, but never accept that you deserve less." He looked directly at the audience. "And to those who have more, I ask you, don't look the other way. Don't assume that people in humble jobs are invisible. My mum cleans offices, but she also taught me values that no money can buy. Dignity doesn't come with a job title. It comes from how we treat others." The silence in the auditorium was absolute. 6 months ago, a phone call changed my life. But not because I answered in German. It changed my life because someone decided to look beyond the obvious. Someone decided that potential matters more than packaging. Finn took a deep breath for his final sentence. "All of you have the power to be that person for someone else. To see talent where others see limitations. To open doors instead of building walls. Because in the end, we won't be remembered for how much we had, but for how much we shared." He paused. "Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you, Mum, for teaching me that I deserve to be here." Finn walked off the stage as the auditorium erupted in applause. It wasn't polite applause. It was genuine, enthusiastic applause. Some parents stood up, then more, until the entire auditorium was standing. Claire was openly crying now, not caring who saw her. Her son, this boy who had carried so much on his small shoulders, had just spoken with a clarity and maturity that took her breath away. When Finn came down from the stage, he walked straight to his mother. Claire hugged him tightly, feeling his body tremble with adrenaline and relief. "You were incredible," she whispered. "I'm so proud." Finn clung to her. "I couldn't have done it without you." They stayed hugging while the event continued around them. Two people who had fought against everything to get there. After the event, several parents approached Claire and Finn. Some to congratulate, others simply to shake their hands. An elegant woman stopped in front of Claire. "Your son has a brilliant future," she said sincerely. "And it's clear where that strength comes from." Claire felt her face burn, but this time not with shame, but with pride. "Thank you," she replied with her head held high. Valentina ran up to Finn. "That was the best speech I've ever heard," she said excitedly. "You made half the auditorium cry." Finn laughed nervously. "I hope they were good tears." "The best," she confirmed. As they left the auditorium, Claire noticed someone waiting near the entrance. It was Marcus Thorne. He was wearing casual clothes, not his usual suit. Claire was surprised to see him there. "Mr. Thorne," she said, approaching. "I didn't know you would come." Marcus smiled. "I wouldn't have missed it," he replied. "After all, I have some responsibility in this story." He turned to Finn. "That speech was exceptional, young man. You spoke truths that many adults don't dare to say." Finn lowered his gaze modestly. "I just said what I felt." "That is exactly what made it powerful," Marcus replied. They walked together toward the car park. Marcus told them that he had closely followed the progress of both. Claire's reviews, Finn's grades, everything had exceeded expectations. "But that doesn't surprise me," he added. "You always had what was needed. You just needed the opportunity to prove it." Claire felt something break inside her, but in a good way, like when a dam that has held water for too long finally opens. "Thank you," she said with a trembling voice, "for seeing us when we were invisible." Marcus shook his head. "You were never invisible, Claire. You were just in a system that didn't know how to look. That's the system that needs to change, not you." They said their goodbyes with a handshake. But before leaving, Marcus turned back one last time. "By the way," he said, "we are implementing a scholarship program at the company for the children of employees who demonstrate academic excellence." Finn was the inspiration. Claire felt the tears return. "Truly?" "Truly," Marcus confirmed. Sometimes one story has the power to change more than one life. It can change an entire culture. When he left, Claire and Finn stood in the car park, processing everything that had happened. "Mum," Finn said after a moment, "do you remember when you asked me if I did the right thing?" Claire nodded. "The day you answered the phone." Finn smiled. "Now I know the answer. I didn't do the right thing just by answering. I did the right thing because I wasn't afraid to be who I am." Claire hugged him again. "That is the most important lesson of all." The following months brought more changes. Finn continued to excel at school, not only in German but in all subjects. He became a volunteer tutor for students who had difficulties with languages. His patience and empathy made him exceptional in that role. Claire, for her part, was promoted to shift supervisor. It was a small position, but significant. Now she had her own small office, her own team, and she treated every member with the respect that she herself had craved for years. Patricia joked that she was the kindest boss she had ever had. Claire replied that kindness didn't mean weakness. It meant remembering where you came from. 1 year after the day everything changed, the company organized an annual employee event. It was the first time Claire had attended such a thing. Marcus went up to the stage to give a speech about the year's achievements. "And I want to recognize something special," he said, looking out at the audience. "A year ago, we almost lost a crucial contract, not because of a lack of capability, but because of a lack of vision. An unexpected situation showed us that talent and value exist in places we weren't looking." Claire felt all eyes turned to her. "Since then, we have implemented important changes development programs for all employees, regardless of their position, scholarships for families, language training, and most importantly, a culture that values every person, not just those in the offices above." Applause filled the room. I especially want to thank Claire Mendez and her son Finn for reminding us that excellence has no pedigree. It just needs opportunity. Claire felt tears in her eyes, but this time she didn't hold them back. She let them fall freely as the entire room applauded. That night, back home, Finn and Claire had dinner together as always, but the conversation was different. They no longer talked about surviving. They talked about dreaming. "You know what I want to do when I'm older?" Finn asked. Claire smiled. "What?" "I want to create language programs for disadvantaged communities," he said. "I want other kids like me to be able to learn, not because their parents can afford it, but because they have the desire." Claire felt her heart expand. "Your Oma would be so proud." Finn nodded. "And you, Mum, what do you want to do?" Claire thought for a moment. "I want to stay where I am," she replied. "But I want to make sure no one on my team feels invisible. I want to be for others what Marcus was for us." "That's a beautiful goal," Finn said. They were silent for a moment, enjoying the simplicity of being together. "You know what the craziest thing about all of this is?" Claire finally said. "What?" "That it started with something as simple as a phone call? A moment that could have gone unnoticed, changed everything." Finn reflected on that. "It wasn't just the call, Mum. It was everything that came before, the nights you worked, the times you sacrificed so I could have school supplies, the afternoons with Oma. All of that prepared me for that moment." Claire felt tears again. "Sometimes we don't know we are preparing for something big." "Maybe that's the point," Finn replied. "We should always be ready, because we never know when our opportunity will arrive." 2 years later, Finn graduated from high school with honors. Claire was in the front row, crying with pride. Marcus also attended, along with several colleagues from the company who had followed the story. When Finn received his diploma, the applause was deafening. But beyond the academic recognition, what truly mattered was the path he had taken to get there. In his graduation speech, Finn spoke again about opportunities, about seeing beyond appearances, about the power of one person choosing to make a difference. "We all have a call to answer," he said. "Not necessarily in German, not necessarily in an office, but we all have that moment where we can choose between staying quiet or speaking, between hiding or showing ourselves, between accepting that the world is unfair or working to change it." His words resonated in the auditorium full of graduates and families. "I chose to speak," he continued. "My mum chose to keep fighting when it would have been easier to give up, and someone else chose to see our value when no one else did. Those choices changed our lives." He looked directly at the audience. "What will you choose?" The applause that followed was thunderous. Years later, Finn would fulfill his promise. He created a foundation for language teaching for marginalized communities. Claire continued at the company, eventually becoming operations manager, and Marcus expanded his opportunity programs to other businesses. But the most important thing wasn't the titles or the achievements. It was the silent change that occurred in hundreds of lives. The people who were seen when before they were invisible, the talents that were recognized when before they were ignored, the doors that were opened when before they were closed. Because in the end, this wasn't just the story of a boy who answered a phone. It was the story of what happens when someone decides to look beyond the obvious, when someone chooses dignity over indifference, when someone understands that human value is not measured by the job title or the bank account, but by the heart and the effort. Claire and Finn never forgot where they came from, but they also didn't let that define how far they could go. And somewhere, in a place beyond time, Oma Ingrid smiled, because the words she had taught her grandson in that small kitchen not only preserved a language, they preserved a connection, a memory, A legacy that would end up changing lives. Sometimes the biggest things start with the smallest gestures. A grandmother teaching words, a mother working in silence, a child answering a phone, and a man choosing to see. That's all it takes to change a life, or perhaps to change the world.